Ladies and gentlemen, you ever been betrayed? Ever been broken by the very people you trusted? People who smiled in your face but stabbed you the moment you turned around? Oh, I know somebody here knows what I'm talking about. There are moments in life when you feel like nobody sees you. Nobody understands the pain you carry, the silent battles you fight behind closed doors. You smile in public, but deep down you're carrying wounds that no one has even asked about, because the truth is, people see what they want to see. They celebrate you when you're winning, but when the storms come, when the knives are out, when betrayal strikes, suddenly nobody's paying attention. But let me tell you something. God saw it. Oh yes, he saw it. He saw the whispers behind your back, the plans formed against you in secret places. He saw the lies they told, the way they smiled in your face while plotting to tear you down. You may not have heard the conversations, but he did. You may not have seen the setup, but he did. While you were busy loving them, trusting them, standing by their side, God saw their real intentions. And I know it hurts. It's painful to realize that the people you prayed for, the people you sacrificed for, were the very ones digging a hole for you behind the scenes. You gave them loyalty, and they repaid you with deception. You spoke highly of them, but they slandered you when you weren't around. They tried to block opportunities that had your name on them, thinking no one would ever find out. But here's the thing. God is not blind. See, people can fool man, but they can't fool God. They can pretend, they can manipulate, they can wear a mask so convincing that the whole world believes them. But God sees straight through it. He doesn't just see actions. He sees the heart. He knows the motives. He knows what they meant when they said those words. He knows why they did what they did. And maybe right now you're in that place of confusion, wondering, God, why would you allow this? Why would you let them get away with it? But let me remind you, they didn't get away with anything. Just because justice hasn't come in the way you expected doesn't mean justice isn't coming. Because God has a way of dealing with hidden betrayals. When Joseph's own brothers threw him into a pit, they thought they got away with it. They thought they buried his dreams, buried his potential, buried his destiny. But what they didn't realize was God saw it. And because God saw it, he used what they meant for evil to position Joseph for elevation. The same people who tried to destroy him had to watch him rise to power. And maybe that's what God is doing for you. Maybe the betrayal was never about breaking you. It was about positioning you. Maybe the reason it happened in secret is because your promotion will happen in public. But you have to trust him. You have to trust that his eyes are on you, that he hasn't forgotten what was done to you. You don't need to chase revenge. You don't need to expose anybody. You don't need to beg for people to believe you. Because when God moves, the truth will be undeniable. So don't waste your energy trying to prove yourself to people who are never for you. Don't lose sleep over those who misjudged you, who underestimated you, who tried to dim your light behind the scenes, because while they were working against you in the dark, God was working for you in the light. And when he gets ready to move, when he gets ready to shift things in your favor, when he gets ready to lift you up, nothing and no one will be able to stop it. Because he saw it all. And when God sees it, justice is only a matter of time. Betrayal cuts deeper than any wound you can see. It doesn't leave bruises on the skin. It leaves scars on the soul. And the hardest part, it never comes from your enemies. It comes from the people you let close, the ones you trusted, the ones you defended when others warned you. It's not a stranger's words that break you. It's the whisper of someone you once called family, the deception of someone you once called a friend. But let me tell you something. The enemy doesn't waste his attacks on those who don't have purpose. If you've been betrayed, if you've been lied on, if you've been abandoned by people who once stood beside you, understand this. It's not because you were weak. It's not because you weren't enough. It's because you are chosen. The enemy doesn't come after people who don't have destiny on their life. He doesn't waste time on those who aren't a threat to his plans. No, he goes after the ones carrying purpose, the ones with anointing, the ones who have something powerful inside them. And the enemy is not foolish. He knows that a direct attack won't always work. So instead, he gets strategic. He attacks through the ones you love. Because the enemy knows something. Pain hits different when it comes from someone you trusted. A stranger's betrayal is easy to ignore, but when it's someone you laughed with, someone you cried with, someone you would have given your last for, that's a different kind of pain. That kind of pain doesn't just hurt. It shakes your faith. It makes you question your worth. It makes you wonder if you'll ever trust again. And that's exactly what the enemy wants. See, betrayal isn't just about breaking your heart. It's about breaking your spirit. It's about making you bitter, making you angry, making you shut down and isolate yourself. Because if the enemy can make you lose faith in people, then he can make you lose faith in your calling. If he can make you believe that everyone is against you, then he can convince you to stop walking in your purpose. But listen to me. You cannot let betrayal break you. You are not the first to be betrayed. You are not the first to be talked about, plotted against, pushed aside. Look at Joseph. His own brothers threw him into a pit, left him for dead, and sold him into slavery. Why? Because he had a vision, because he had a destiny, because he was chosen. And the enemy knew that if Joseph ever walked in his calling, he would be unstoppable. So what did he do? He sent betrayal. He sent pain. He sent rejection. Look at Jesus. He was betrayed with a kiss. Judas didn't just leave. He didn't just walk away. He pretended to be close while secretly working against him. And don't miss this. Judas was necessary. Because without Judas, Jesus wouldn't have made it to the cross. Without the betrayal, there would be no resurrection. Without the attack, there would be no victory. So maybe, just maybe, this betrayal wasn't meant to break you. Maybe it was meant to position you. Maybe the very thing that was supposed to destroy you is the thing God will use to elevate you. Maybe the people who thought they were setting you back were really setting you up. Because here's the truth. The enemy has no new tricks. He's been using betrayal since the beginning of time. Why? Because it works. Because it hurts. Because it makes people give up. But what he doesn't realize is that what the enemy meant for evil, God will always turn for good. So I need you to do something. I need you to wipe your tears, lift your head, and understand this attack was not about you being weak. It was about you being chosen. Because the ones who carry the most purpose often face the most pain. The ones who have the greatest calling often endure the deepest betrayals. And if God allowed it, he's going to use it. If he let them betray you, he's going to make sure it works for your good. Because no weapon formed against you shall prosper, not even the ones that came from people you loved. There are moments in life when the weight of what you've been through feels unbearable. The betrayal, the rejection, the loss, the disappointment. It was supposed to break you. It was supposed to leave you so shattered that you'd never recover. They thought that if they hurt you bad enough, if they turned their back on you, if they stripped you of your confidence, you would never rise again. But let me tell you something. God does not waste pain. You see, people may have counted you out. They may have written your story like it was over, but they forgot one thing. God holds the pen. And when God is writing your story, what was meant to destroy you is the very thing he will use to build you. Look at the pain you've survived. Look at the tears you've cried. Look at the nights you wondered if you would ever feel whole again. That storm wasn't easy. That loss wasn't easy. But the fact that you're still standing is proof that it didn't break you the way they thought it would. Oh, it hurts. It wounded you. It took something from you. But there's a difference between being broken and being in the process of being built. Because sometimes, before God can elevate you, he has to tear some things down. Think about a building. Before a skyscraper rises, before the foundation is set, before the walls go up, the ground has to be broken. It has to be dug deep. It has to be prepared. It has to be reshaped. And that process isn't pretty. It's messy. It's painful. It's disruptive. But it's necessary, because if the foundation isn't strong, the building won't stand. And maybe that's what God has been doing in your life. Maybe what you thought was breaking you was really God building you from the inside out. Maybe that betrayal wasn't a setback, it was a setup. Maybe that rejection wasn't about hurting you, it was about redirecting you. Maybe the pain you went through wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Because some of the strongest people, the most powerful warriors, the ones who make the biggest impact, they didn't get there because life was easy. They got there because they endured, because they let the fire refine them instead of destroy them, because they realized that pain is not the end of the story, it's the beginning of something greater. Look at Joseph. His own brothers threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery, and left him to die. He went from being favored to being forgotten, from being a dreamer to being locked in a prison. But what they meant for evil, God was using to prepare him for his purpose. Because in that pit, in that prison, God was shaping him. God was teaching him. God was building him into the leader he was destined to be. And when the time was right, the very ones who tried to break him had to watch him rise. Look at Job. He lost everything. His wealth, his family, his health. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and people thought it was over for him. But what they didn't see was that in the middle of his pain, God was still in control. And when God restored him, he didn't just give him back what he lost. He gave him double. Because when God rebuilds, he doesn't just put you back where you were. He takes you higher. That's why you can't give up. That's why you can't let the pain make you bitter. That's why you can't let what they did to you stop you from becoming who you were meant to be. Because the very thing that was meant to break you, God is going to use it to build you into something stronger, something greater, something unstoppable. So don't focus on the pain, focus on the purpose. Don't look at what was taken, look at what's being built. Because when it's all said and done, you will stand taller, wiser, and stronger than you ever thought possible. And the ones who tried to break you will have no choice but to watch as God lifts you higher than they ever imagined. There is something about deception that cuts deep. When people you trusted turn out to be the very ones working against you, when lies are spoken behind your back, when manipulation and deceit are used to make you look like the villain, it shakes you. It makes you question everything. How could they do this? How could they pretend to love you while secretly plotting against you? And the worst part? It seems like they're getting away with it. It seems like no one sees what they're doing. They smile in public while stabbing you in private. They spread lies while you stay silent. They manipulate situations to make you look like the problem. And you sit there, watching it unfold, wondering, God, do you see this? Do you see what they're doing? Do you see how they're twisting the truth? Why are you letting this happen? But hear me today. God sees it all. Every lie, every false accusation, every moment of deceit, nothing is hidden from him. People may be fooled, but God is not. The enemy thrives in darkness because that's where deception lives. Lies don't work in the light. That's why deception happens in secret places, behind closed doors, in whispered conversations. Because the moment truth steps in, the lie loses its power. And here's what you have to understand. God's timing is perfect. I know it's hard to wait. I know it's painful to watch people prosper while their foundation is built on deception. I know it's frustrating when people believe the lie and question your character. But trust me, God is not mocked. The same way he sees when people try to destroy you in secret, he also has a plan to expose the truth in public. Look at Joseph. His brothers sold him into slavery and lied to their father, making it seem like he was dead. They thought their deception worked. They thought they buried his destiny. But what they didn't realize was that God had a plan bigger than their deception. He wasn't just going to expose their lie. He was going to elevate Joseph in a way they never expected. And when the time was right, those same brothers who betrayed him had to come and stand before him. Humbled by the truth they could no longer deny. Look at Haman in the book of Esther. He plotted against Mordecai, manipulated the king, and set a trap designed to destroy him. And for a while, it looked like his plan was working. But God saw it. And when God stepped in, Haman's own deception was turned against him. The very trap he set was the one he fell into. That's the power of God's timing. That's why you don't have to fight every battle. That's why you don't have to chase after people trying to prove yourself. Because when God exposes the truth, there will be no debate, no confusion, no question about it. And let me tell you something. When God reveals the truth, he does it in a way that no man can undo. See, people can deny accusations. They can manipulate situations. They can twist words, but they cannot outrun God's truth. It doesn't matter how long they've been deceiving people. It doesn't matter how deep their lies go. When God shines his light, the darkness has no choice but to flee. But here's the thing. You have to trust him. You have to let go of the need to expose people yourself. Because if you try to do it in your own strength, you might end up looking like the one in the wrong. That's what the enemy wants. To push you into frustration, into bitterness, into trying to force the truth before it's time. But God's timing is strategic. He knows when to reveal, when to vindicate, when to bring justice. And when he does, it won't just be a small revelation. It will be undeniable. The same people who believe the lies will see the truth. The same ones who turned against you will realize they were deceived. And the same ones who tried to destroy you will have to witness your elevation. Because God does not allow deception to reign forever. The enemy may try to delay the truth, but he cannot stop it. What was done in the dark will come to the light. And when it does, it won't just be about clearing your name. It will be about showing God's power, his justice, and his faithfulness. So don't lose heart. Don't let bitterness take root. Don't let the deception of others make you doubt the goodness of God, because truth is coming. And when it does, it will change everything. There are people in this world who don't want to see you win. It doesn't matter how kind you are, how genuine your heart is, how much you've done for them. Some people will still go out of their way to try to bring you down. They will set traps. They will create obstacles. They will plot behind your back, hoping to see you fail. And the most painful part, some of them won't even look like enemies. They'll smile in your face. They'll pretend to support you. They'll act like they're on your side, all while secretly hoping for your downfall. And when the moment comes, when they think they've finally outsmarted you, when they believe they've got you exactly where they want you, that's when God steps in. Because what they don't realize is this: God does not let his children fall into traps without a plan to use them for something greater. You see, the enemy is always working. He's always scheming, always setting up roadblocks, always trying to find a way to stop you. But no matter how hard he tries, he will never be able to outsmart God. Because while the enemy is setting traps, God is turning them into stepping stones. Look at Joseph. His brothers threw him into a pit. They wanted to erase him, destroy him, make sure he never reached his destiny. That pit was meant to be the end of his story, but instead, God used it as the beginning of something greater. That pit led to Egypt. Egypt led to the palace, and the palace led to his purpose. What was meant to be his downfall became the very thing that positioned him for elevation. Look at Daniel. His enemies couldn't stand the favor on his life, so they plotted against him. They set a trap, manipulated the king, and had him thrown into the lion's den. They thought it was over. They thought he was done. But God used that very trap to show his power. Daniel didn't just survive. He came out untouched. And the same people who tried to destroy him had to watch as God lifted him even higher. Look at Jesus. The religious leaders set trap after trap, twisting his words, trying to turn people against him. And when they finally thought they had succeeded, when they arrested him, when they nailed him to that cross, when they sealed that tomb, they thought it was finished. They thought their plan had worked. But what they didn't know was that cross wasn't a defeat. It was a setup for victory. The very thing they thought would destroy him became the very thing that brought salvation to the world. So hear me today. Whatever trap the enemy has set for you, God is about to turn it around. That betrayal, God is going to use it to elevate you. That rejection, God is going to use it to redirect you. That closed door, God is going to use it to push you into something greater. The enemy wants you to believe that the obstacles in front of you are designed to break you. He wants you to believe that the setbacks, the disappointments, the betrayals are meant to stop you. But the truth is, every trap is just another step toward your destiny. So don't be afraid when people plot against you. Don't be discouraged when they try to block your blessings. Don't waste your energy fighting battles that God has already won. Because what they meant for harm, God is turning for your good. What they built to destroy you, God is using to develop you. And when the time is right, the same people who tried to stop you will have to watch as God lifts you higher. The same ones who thought you wouldn't make it will have to witness your breakthrough. Because when God is for you, no trap, no scheme, no weapon formed against you can prosper. There's something powerful about faithfulness. When everything around you seems to be falling apart, when doors keep closing, when people walk away, when life doesn't seem fair, staying faithful is the hardest thing to do, but it's also the most important. Because the truth is, your elevation is coming. Your breakthrough is on the way. And no one, not your enemies, not your past, not the lies that were told about you, not even the setbacks you faced, can stop what God has already ordained. But before elevation comes, there is always a season of testing. A season where it feels like nothing is working, where it seems like your prayers are hitting the ceiling, where you wonder if God has forgotten about you. It's in those moments that the enemy whispers, give up, stop believing, stop hoping, stop trusting. But you can't listen to that voice. Because the enemy knows something that you may not fully see yet. If you stay faithful, you are unstoppable. Think about Joseph. He had a dream, a vision of elevation. But before he could step into it, he had to go through betrayal. He had to endure the pit, the false accusations, the prison. Years passed, seasons changed. And at any moment, he could have let bitterness take over. He could have said, God, this isn't fair. I've been faithful, and all I've gotten is pain. But he didn't. He stayed faithful. He kept trusting, kept believing, kept honoring God. And in the right season, not a moment too late, God elevated him from the prison to the palace. What if he had given up too soon? What if he had stopped believing right before his breakthrough? That's why you have to keep going, because what you don't see is that God is preparing a place for you. He is moving things behind the scenes. He is shifting situations in your favor. And when the moment is right, when the preparation is complete, he will elevate you in a way that no one can deny. Look at David. He was anointed as king when he was still a shepherd, but his elevation didn't come right away. He had to go through battles. He had to face giants. He had to deal with people trying to kill him. And for years, it looked like the promise would never come to pass. But through it all, he stayed faithful. And when the time was right, nothing, not Saul's jealousy, not the attacks, not the waiting, could stop what God had already declared over his life. That's what happens when you stay faithful. What is meant for you will always find you. What God has spoken over your life cannot be stolen, cannot be delayed, cannot be stopped by anyone, not even your enemies. But you have to keep trusting. You have to keep believing. You have to keep walking, even when you don't see progress, even when it feels like nothing is happening, even when you feel overlooked. Because sometimes God is working on you in private before he elevates you. And when he lifts you, it won't be by human hands. It won't be because of connections. It won't be because people approved of you. It will be because God opened the door and no one will be able to shut it. So don't let discouragement stop you. Don't let frustration make you quit. Your elevation is coming. And when it does, the same people who doubted you, the same ones who counted you out, the same ones who thought you'd never rise, they will have no choice but to watch as God lifts you higher than they ever imagined. So stand tall, hold your head up, walk in faith, because what's done in the dark cannot stay hidden forever. It hurts you in secret, but God will expose them publicly. And when he does, it won't be for your destruction. It will be for your elevation. Now go, walk in victory, walk in purpose, because your time is coming. Thank you.